What is the most obscure Pokemon game ever made? I've been playing this franchise for years, trying things from mainline titles, spin-offs, games unreleased in the United States, ROM hacks, fan games, but nothing compares to this. An NES port of Pokemon Yellow made by Chinese developer studio Shenzhen Nanjing. Is this game functional? Does it actually include the entire game? Or is it just a cash grab made purely because video game systems from Japan and the West were unable to make it into the country at the time? Well, let's find out as I hardcore Nuzlocke Pokemon Yellow's forbidden NES port. Make sure to like this video and subscribe for more obscure and challenging Pokemon content as we're on the race to 200,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And with that, let's begin with a history lesson. But before we do, I just want to give a huge shout out to today's sponsor, Dungeon Hunter 6. As the sixth entry in the Dungeon Hunter series, the games only become more visually stunning and addicting with their classic hack-and-slash gameplay. And with the ability to not only take bosses down, but even make them serve my whims, makes every adventure feel like a real team effort, much like with Pokemon. As a matter of fact, Dungeon Hunter 6 even lets you take down bosses' forms. So now I really do get to feel the power of those who I take down, very similar to something like Mega Man.
Now I've got your power!
Seriously, this game lets you play as a cat for stealth missions. Everybody knows cats are awesome. And while my buddies are checking this game out with me, we get to show each other whose monsters are the boss in the guild wars, as well as helping each other by auctioning items to really take our squads to the next level. Like what you see? Well, you're in luck because the game is available to download for free on both Android and iOS. And if you're watching this on PC, be sure to scan the QR code on screen and get yourself a free starter pack, including bonus monsters, to start you off on the right foot. Pokemon Yellow for the NES has a rather interesting company behind it. Founded in 2002, Shenzhen Nanjing Technology developed Chinese-language turn-based RPGs for the Famicom. However, since Nintendo was unable to release the Famicom, or NES, in China, and initially had no interest in releasing their consoles in the Commonwealth of Independent States, or CIS, following the collapse of the Soviet Union, there needed to be a console that would actually be able to run these games. Enter Steepler, a Moscow-based IT company founded in 1990, as well as a businessman by the name of Viktor Stavyuk, who came to the company to propose selling TV game consoles. Initially, they were unable to initiate any business with Nintendo due to their disinterest, so upon reaching a deal with the TXC Corporation out of Taiwan, who created what's known as a Famiclone, or Famicom clone console, the Dendy was born and released on December 17, 1992. Demand skyrocketed, and by 1994, over 100,000 systems were selling each month, gaining the attention of Nintendo of America upon learning of the demand for their systems in the region. This led to an agreement to distribute SNES and Game Boy consoles, and though Steepler went bankrupt in 1996, the bootleg Famicom market was still running rampant for over a decade to come. With a little bit of the history established, companies like Shenzhen Nanjing and Weixing released pirated ports of games for future consoles to the Famicom to be released in the region, though the former is who we're focused on. As a developer of turn-based RPGs, they would backport numerous titles like Golden Sun, Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy IV, Tales of Fantasia, and many other popular games of the 90s and 2000s, most famously the NES port of Final Fantasy VII. But in 2005, the company would release a backport of Pokemon Yellow, including new features from the then recently released Fire Red and Leaf Green, as well as legendary Pokemon from Generations 2 and 3. But since this game of course is in Mandarin Chinese, I can't understand it for the challenge itself. But thankfully in 2015, a full English translation was released on September 26, 2015 by romhacking.net user Lugia2009, bringing us to today. So how does this game hold up? And does it actually function? Well, let's find out. So the game starts off immediately with the normal Professor Oak introducing the world of Pokemon to you, but you're unable to name the character and immediately are thrown into the world, with graphics reminiscent of Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, down to the sprites in grass basically being the same, though the map designs of these areas are completely different compared to the original game. But since this is a port of Pokemon Yellow, of course our starter is Pikachu, and our rival, who's also not nameable and defaults as Gary, starts with an Eevee. I nearly lost this fight to an early crit tackle by Eevee, but thankfully, due to some paralysis off of Thundershock, I'm able to take the win after a few uses of the attack. Not a bad simulation of the game's battle system, though I am curious if the damage calculations are even remotely similar to the games of the time, at this point being Generation 3. From here, I head up to Viridian City for the parcel for Professor Oak, but a nice change is made here where I can actually purchase things from the mart before delivering it, allowing me to get Pokeballs and capture my Route 1 encounter in Pidgey. Thankfully, capturing Pokemon also seems to be pretty functional, and the sprites, rather than being taken from Yellow, are instead taken from the Gen 2 titles, making them more appealing to the eye. We also get the EXP bar, just like those games as well, so there have definitely been improvements made. Admittedly, the overworld does look a little scuffed, but I can't really complain that much. It's wild that a bootleg game actually has this much effort put into it so far. I hope it continues to hold up instead of, falling apart after a gym or two. After delivering that parcel though, I tried getting an encounter with the new grass in Pallet Town, though there weren't any actual encounters. So I head to Route 22 west of Viridian for another encounter, but the rival battle actually starts with your first step into the area, so I'm walking in with a weak Pikachu and Pidgey against his Spearow and Eevee that are level 9 and 8 respectively. Thankfully, despite the level gap though, Pikachu's able to take out Spearow with a few Thunder Shocks, only taking 33% damage before Eevee comes out, so I hit a single Thunder Shock, swap to my level 3 Pidgey, and hit a couple of pecks to get Eevee down to around 20%. Pidgey's down to only 5 HP though, so I swap back into Pikachu, dealing out 2 more Thunder Shocks to KO and win the fight without too much of a threat. Not sure if that was more due to the wonky mechanics, or just because Gary's Pokemon aren't strong at this point, but I'll take it. Afterwards, the encounter ends up being Mankey, so that's a pretty nice Pokemon to have in advance of Brock, with Rattata on Route 2, and Caterpie in Viridian Forest. The only problem I'm seeing so far is that the Pokemon with the trainers are getting to be much higher level than they'd normally be, with like level 10 Caterpie being the first one while I'm sitting here between level 3 or 6. So I need to do some grinding. Sadly though, I don't do enough and end up getting bodied by the last trainer in the forest with literally 5 Pokemon. 4 of which are simple enough considering they're only Caterpies and Metapods, but the level 8 Butterfree at the end just wallops my entire team to the point where I wipe, despite being so close to KOing it. I guess that's the curse of not having documentation for anything on this game aside from brief glimpses to find the level caps for each gym. All good though, run number 2 ends up going a bit better with Pidgey once again being the encounter for Route 1, Kakuna being the encounter for Viridian Forest, Nidoran Female being on Route 2, but before I finish my grind, a Weedle ends up poisoning my Pidgey before I can get a hold of some antidotes, KOing it before I can walk back to the Pokemon Center. Well then, that's no fun, but once I go back up to Route 2, I notice something funky. I KO a Nidoran male, but it drops an item after the battle finishes, that being TM12 Steel Wing. Admittedly, I didn't notice it at the time, but after a bit more grinding in Viridian Forest, I did start noticing that after some battles, things like healing items, evolutionary stones, TMs, and even the occasional rare candy were dropping at uncommon frequencies, but just enough for them to start piling up. Kinda wish more of those rare candies would have dropped though, since grinding in this game takes forever, and considering the fact that I can't use something like PK Hex due to incompatibility to insert things like rare candies because it's an NES game, the thing was not made for a Chinese knockoff game, so that certainly increased the tedium. It also seems like any Pokemon can drop any TM, and while I'm not sure about whether moves like Calm Mind work as intended, the fact that Thunder can be a potential drop for Pikachu gives me hope that I can at least find one before Misty. After some grinding though, I feel comfortable enough to head to Route 22, take out Gary with mostly Pikachu, though with some help from Nidoran, getting my new encounter of Nidoran Male. Well, I guess that's unfortunate, 3 poison types so far, but Nidoking is definitely better than Nidoqueen or Beedrill, so I'll at least take that and run with it, especially considering Moonstones are droppable from the grind. I also thought that these weird orange patches of grass in Viridian Forest had a different encounter rate, since it felt like I was running into a lot more Kakuna and Metapod, therefore making grinding a little more tolerable, but that could have just been anecdotal evidence based on no data collection whatsoever. Nerdy tangent aside though, Kakuna finally evolves into Beedrill at level 10, proving to me that yes, Pokemon do fully evolve in this port, and they do it at the correct levels. I know that sounds insane to think that that wouldn't be the case, but I really didn't expect anything of quality from this whatsoever, but I'm getting pretty damn shocked by this whole ordeal. Speaking of shocked, there's Thunder, and there's the perfect move to take out that Butterfree that wiped us in Attempt 1, opening us up to Pewter City. There also happens to be grass here, and since Pallet Town didn't have any encounters, I figured this would be the same case. But turns out I'm wrong, and I'm able to capture a Rattata here. Nearly a full team, and with one grind up to the level cap of 12, it's finally time for Brock and his 4 Pokemon. Well, that's a lot more than expected, but I'm more than up for a challenge. First up is Geodude, and since one of the TMs dropped during the grind was Focus Punch, I can use that with Rattata. That might sound weird, but that's because this doesn't work properly. See, you never have the focus broken, so Geodude hits a pathetic tackle while I unleash a 150 power fighting move at the end of the turn to its face, KOing in one shot and leading to Zubat. Like in the anime? I guess that's actually more faithful to the anime than Yellow version was, so I swapped to Pikachu, dodging Supersonic, and hitting Thunder for the one-shot as Vulpix comes out third. Should have seen this coming considering the Zubat, but after a critical, Thunder is able to get the one-shot, it leaves just Onix. Out to Nidoran male I go as both this and the female learned Revenge at level 12, letting me two-shot through 2 Mud Slaps and a Feint Attack, doing less than half and not missing either to KO and win the Boulder Badge. While that wasn't too difficult, the fact that he had additional Pokemon kinda surprised me and gives me hope that some of the added content to this version of Yellow will potentially make it better than the Game Boy version. What world did I fall into where a bootleg might be better than the original game? What world did I fall into where a bootleg of the highest grossing media franchise on the planet might be better than the original game? Well, it is the one that Game Freak develops them, so I can't really be too surprised. But we're gonna continue to Route 3 and see if that quality continues to hold up. After a few trainers, Route 3 yields us a Mankey as our encounter, giving me a nice fighting type and filling the last slot of our team, right before I decide to test something. Considering we had Thunderstones dropped from our grind before Brock, will one of them work on Pikachu? It shouldn't, but here in the NES version, it does, giving me a Raichu. Hell yes! I cannot be mad about the aspects of the game that I didn't like in the original being fixed to be better, even if it's not faithful to the anime in that regard, but I'd rather have a Raichu instead of a Pikachu. Upon entering Route 4, though, I decided to see if the purchasable Magikarp is here just to get the encounter, and sure enough, it's here for 500 Pokédollars, so I'll put that in the PC until it's time for grinding again. For Mount Moon, I end up getting a Geodude, so I'm curious about what level trade evolutions are obtained, if at all, though I don't anticipate adding it to the team. Also, I noticed something peculiar in Mount Moon, and that's if a Pokemon gets confused and then swapped out, it retains the confusion status effect, and it gives an icon just like something like Poison or Paralysis would have. Admittedly annoying, but also neat since now I have to think of different ways around it rather than just switching out and waiting for the opponent to miss with Supersonic or run out of Confuse Ray power points. Another thing about status is that if a status move is used while you have a different status, say Stun Spore after being confused, that paralysis will overwrite the confusion, and that goes for any status effect. Yet again, another system I'm actually in favor of. If it's more useful to paralyze something, pivot to a brittle mon like Ghastly and put it to sleep with Hypnosis with that little bit of added protection, that seems like a neat strategy that's made possible by this game. 17 years before it gets featured in Legends Arceus. After a grind though, just at the end is an encounter against Jesse and James, though honestly they're so frail and weak that I can't consider them to be major encounters, so we whip their bums so hard they blast off, allowing me to enter Cerulean City with a stacked team headed up by Raichu and my newly evolved Nidoking. I still have a Nidorina though, since I didn't get a second Moonstone during the grind to level 17. A bit unfortunate, but Nidoking's better anyway, especially when the TMs for both Earthquake and Sludge Bomb randomly drop. What is this, Sword and Shield with its endgame TRs being available in the wild area? Admittedly, it's kinda broken, but I will take it. Anyway, entering Cerulean City, and I immediately noticed that I don't have to get the SS ticket first before going past the officer and south towards Route 5, but just to keep the intended route, I do go north towards Route 24 for my next rival fight. Gary leads Spearow, so I go with Nidoking, hitting 3 Sludge Bombs in a row to KO without taking too much damage, doing the same to his Sandshrew through 2 Earthquakes, only hitting a Charm to lower my attack and defense each by 1 stage. Well, I guess that's a little more balanced than normal Charm. Either way, third out is Rattata, and Revenge is perfect here, but so too is 2 Stab Earthquakes to the dome, KOing and leaving just Eevee to fall to an Earthquake, Revenge, and Sludge Bomb in sequence, all while barely doing any damage with Tackle to win the fight. I do finally deposit Beedrill though, and sub in Magikarp to start switch training them on the trainers throughout Nugget Bridge and Route 25. And while it won't be immediately useful due to the next 3 gym leaders being Water, Electric, and Grass, it's still a really strong Pokemon, and I can't deny putting that on my team. There's also another dropped Moonstone here, so I'm able to finally evolve Nidorina into Nidoqueen right before getting my Route 24 encounter in the Gift Charmander. Really happy that this is here. Charizard will definitely be going on my team later on to help balance things out. 1 SS ticket and Route 25 encounter in Venonat later, and I'm able to head south into Route 5, encountering Abra. Well shoot, if this catches, this is another really big powerhouse. But unfortunately not, as it uses Teleport to get away following my first ball. Route 6, though, has Ekans. Another poison type. No thanks, I will pass considering abilities aren't here, and even if they were, I would have Intimidate on Gyarados. Into Vermilion City we go, and straight east onto Route 11, though, houses Drowsy, a decent substitution for Alakazam, and of course Diglett's Cave has Diglett, complete with no arena trap to be an asshole since there's no repels in this game either. Admittedly, this is probably my biggest problem with the game so far, but at least it doesn't seem like you can fail running away, so I suppose that's a fine trade-off. 1 grind later to level 21, evolving Magikarp and Rattata in the process, and I'm good to go for Misty as she only has 2 Pokemon, starting Staryu against Raichu. Thunder does it in succinctly, leading to Starmie, who goes for Agility 3 times in a row as I miss Thunder twice, but 3rd time's the charm, getting the one-shot KO and winning me the fight. I would have expected, like, Psyduck, at least considering they added Zubat and Vulpix to Brock's team, but no big deal. With our level cap increasing to 30, I head over to the SS Anne for our next rival battle, but beforehand, I noticed that there's actually some new moves added to this game, as one of the Shelders uses a move called Arctic Breeze. Not sure about the power, don't know if it has a secondary effect, but it is a decent Ice-type move, so I might want to keep my eyes out for that. Anyway, Gary's ready and leading with Spearow as I lead with Gyarados, crunching a few times as he goes for some smoke screens, getting 2 back-to-back critical pecks as I swap into Raticate, seeing a max potion before a 3rd critical peck brings Raticate down to just 3 HP following a Hyper Fang. That's a little overkill there with that type of item so early, but again, challenge is not a bad thing. Hyper Fang did about half, so I swap into Nidoqueen, taking a smoke screen and 2 growls while reciprocating with 2 Revenges and a bite to KO, leading to Rattata. Those 2 attack drops are a bit of a detriment here though, as Revenge only does about 1/3 to Rattata while Tackle does minimal damage, only doing around 1/4 before KOing and leading to Sandshrew. Not gonna risk any super effective attacks here, so I swap for Mankey and tank a critical Poison Sting, hitting a Brick Break and Karate Chop to KO as Eevee comes out last, going down to Brick Break to win us the fight. A bit of a close call with Raticate, but unscathed nonetheless. With Cut in hand though, it's time for a quick grind before Lieutenant Surge, who thankfully has 3 Pokemon like he does in Red and Blue, rather than the single high-level Raichu that he does in Yellow, starting Voltorb against my Nidoking. Yeah, Earthquake kinda just runs through him. It KOs Voltorb after hitting Supersonic, though Nidoking does hit itself twice in a row against his Magnemite, all while it wastes time with Thunder Wave, doing nothing, and Tackle doing basically nothing. 3rd turn's the charm though, as Nidoking snaps out of its confusion, KOs with Earthquake, leaving just the level 30 Raichu. Quick Attack does a bit, but Earthquake does well over half, forcing Surge into a Max Potion Healing Lock, where just clicking Earthquake eventually results in its demise, netting me the Thunder Badge and the TM for Thunderbolt, perfect for Raichu. And in case you're wondering why I wasn't right up to the level cap of 30, Erica and the Rainbow Badge's cap is level 32, so I don't want to risk going over that by being so close with a whole gym's worth of game to get through first. Heading back up into Cerulean City and towards Route 9, I figured I'd comment on the fact that they made the HM selectable from their own section of the submenu, rather than having to teach them to your Pokemon. For 2005, these developers were really ahead of the curve on a lot. Like I mentioned before with the status effect replacement thing, that wasn't implemented into actual Pokemon games until 2022's Legends Arceus, then reverted back to the worst system in Scarlet and Violet, so it's kind of incredible how this supposed bootleg is giving Game Freak a run for its money. Anyway, Route 9 holds no new encounters, seeing as the only ones here are Nidoran Female and Nidoqueen, but Route 10 at least holds Magnemite, gaining the Steel typing here despite it being a Yellow remake and not Fire Red and Leaf Green. Which I will 100% take, since that typing is really helpful against the plentiful poison types throughout Kanto. Rock Tunnel also isn't dark, very nice, and houses a new encounter in Zubat, yet another poison type that probably won't be added to the team, due to the non-existence of Crobat here. The tunnel doesn't have anything interesting though, aside from that, so right on out into Lavender Town, and then to the south is Route 12, housing a new encounter in Meowth. I suppose Persian would be a decent replacement for Raticate if it ends up going down, but for now, with no PK Hex to get anything leveled up to my current team, I don't want to make any changes for the sake of time. Also, for some reason, the Snorlax is not blocking my way to Route 13, rather it's only blocking Route 11 from being accessible to Route 12. Whoops, but I guess I'll take it and get the extra EXP off of these trainers in case we don't hit 32 and prep for Erica. Speaking of which, I decided to just go over to Celadon City now to take out the Rocket Hideout, but while I'm there, I decide to get the Gift Eevee as my encounter for Celadon, as well as the HM for Fly, making travel a lot less tedious. Anyway, the hideout has laser barriers rather than those sliding tiles and the lift key, with switches to unlock them as you clear out different sections of grunts. So that's a neat adaptation to acclimate it to the NES hardware. Nothing much else of note though, aside from Jesse and James once again being rocked by Nidoking, and the first battle against Giovanni. His team is rather strange, leading Drowsy as I go with Nidoking, hitting 2 Earthquakes as he misses Hypnosis to KO with no damage, leading to Machop, who only hits a light Vital Throw, oddly enough changed to a 2-turn move, all while Nidoking manages to KO with 2 Sludge Bombs and a Crush Claw. Third out is Onix, and third gone is Onix after Earthquake, with Rhyhorn likely following suit fourth. However, it actually has slightly better defenses, managing to survive an Earthquake and use Double Edge for a decent chunk of damage before falling to a Revenge. Last out is Persian, and since it doesn't have much, I'm able to get 2 Revenges off while he uses Bite and Quick Attack, bringing him to low HP, all while Nidoking's down just as much overall. That's fine though, I can simply swap an Eradicate, take both a Payday and a Bite while using Focus Punch to KO in one shot to win. Good stuff, and with them booted out, I can head into Erica's gym, though we still need to hit the level cap before challenging the leader herself. Oddly enough though, following taking these trainers out, I noticed that routes 16, 17, and 18 are removed from the game entirely, probably having to do with the bicycle not being available in Cerulean City, or being the easiest thing to do in general on NES hardware. It's actually reflected on the map when you use Fly as well, so it's not like they just overlooked the areas. Instead, I think it streamlines the region a bit more. Not gonna lie, I'm completely okay with this change. Sure, that's 3 less encounters for me and less EXP from optional trainers, but I'm not mad about it at all, and it doesn't put a damper on my experience. I figured also with the Sylph Scope, I may as well take out the Pokemon Tower, with my rival being a pushover as Fearow, Shellder, and Vulpix all fall to Raichu's Thunder, and Sandshrew and Eevee end up being easy with Gyarados, using Bubble Beam for the former and 5 Dragon Claws for the latter. I don't know why it took that many, barely taking any damage in the process to win. Sweet, and with Haunter as my encounter, that's said to be a really potent offensive threat for the Pokemon League. Jesse and James once again stand no chance against a Nidoking that has super effective moves for their entire team, leaving me to just grind on the trainers throughout routes 13, 14, and 15 to finish my EXP gain for Erica, capturing Spearow on Route 14 before arriving in Fuchsia City to make it flyable later. Anyway, Erica leads Tangela as I go with Nidoking, hitting Sludge Bomb for well over half as she goes for Absorb, Avsorb. I can't blame that one on Shenzhen Nanjing, that's on Lugia 2009's English patch there. Either way, it barely does anything to Nidoking as a second Sludge Bomb KOs, leading to Weepinbell. Thankfully, it wastes time using Poison Powder twice, and while the animation plays, it just shows the text of Nidoking... Nidoking what? Nidoking flipped the bird because he's unaffected? I mean, he may as well have done so, as 3 Earthquakes KOs Weepinbell, leaving just Gloom. It too decides to use Poison Powder twice, all while Nidoking is affected by nothing, falling to 3 Earthquakes. You know, people make the joke all the time that Erica is high on grass, but I think the battle truly proved it. I'm kinda just imagining her laughing hysterically while Nidoking is just flipping the bird and obliterating her Pokemon just because of how out of it she truly is. And that's not to dog on marijuana, folks. It's just probably not that wise to smoke while you're at work. With her out of the way though, I've got to get into Saffron and I have no idea where the fresh water or whatever beverage I need to give to the guards is. Thankfully, after entering the last building in Celadon, I'm given a lemonade which lets me in and therefore into Stilfco to start wiping out the grunts. Admittedly though, I thought the building was going to be much larger considering it's 11 floors in the official games, but here it's only 5 floors, so I get ambushed by my rival, while still relatively underleveled. Whoops. Oh well, he leads Sandslash as I lead Nidoking, and since the AI is dumb, I'm able to KO with 3 Earthquakes while he wastes time with Defense Curl and Sand Attack, taking no damage while Ninetales comes out and goes down to 2 Earthquakes after hitting a light Quick Attack and a Smokescreen. With that accuracy deprivation though, I may as well swap out of the weakness to his third Pokemon in Cloyster, opting to swap into Raichu, hitting Thunder immediately to one-shot as Kadabra enters 4th. Going down to 2 of them as a single confusion brings Raichu down to a little over half HP, leaving just Jolteon. Well, would have been a nice time for Nidoking, but Nidoqueen will have to do. We don't have Earthquake, but we do have Dig, though it's nowhere near as good as the first turn does not put Nidoqueen in a semi-invulnerable state, instead just having to tank an additional attack before hitting a move that's weaker than Earthquake. It seems as though the only moves he can use though are Tackle, Sand Attack, and Tail Whip, so I'm free to just sit here and go for Dig all I want, mashing through 2 max potions and KOing after several digs with more than half HP remaining. Considering, though, that this thing was 8 levels higher than Nidoqueen, I think we should grind. A lot. But not until this place is cleared out, though, since I have 0 respect for Team Rocket. Jesse and James still fall to Nidoking, leaving just Giovanni once again. However, I do have a smidgen of respect for him, so I'm gonna need some new moves, as well as some levels. Thankfully, Surf and Strength are both available in Fuchsia City, as well as my encounter here in the Safari Zone being Kangaskhan, another pretty decent normal type for in case Raticate goes down. But since I still can't use Surf outside of battle, I'm gonna need to take out both Koga's gym trainers and the fighting dojo in Saffron City, then be left with only grinding on wild Pokemon for about a dozen levels, considering the cap skyrocketed from 32 to 50. But with my team between level 43 and 47, I'm feeling more than confident to take on Giovanni. He leads Nidorina as I go with Gyarados, using Hydro Pump and missing, all while she goes for Poison Sting, doing minimal damage but immediately getting the status on Gyarados. Unfortunately, Hydro Pump is only doing about a quarter per attack when it hits, but eventually I do pick up the KO with 3 of those and a Bubble Beam, taking about half damage before Rhydon comes out second. I fully expect Bubble Beam to be enough here, but it seems as though Gyarados' special attack is not nearly enough, as it only does around 65%, letting him hit a light feint attack as Poison does more damage, though the second KOs and leads into Nidoqueen, but Gyarados is too weak to continue at this point. I figured I'd swap into my own Nidoqueen for the mirror match here, KOing in 2 digs despite a Charm drop leading to Onix. I figure Revenge should do enough as well, and despite him going for Dig, 2 Revenges are able to connect before Dig does, KOing safely and leaving just Persian to fall to 3 Revenges through a few quick attacks to win. Easily done, and with the Master Ball in hand, it's just a quick grind after taking out Sabrina's gym trainers to level 49, taking on Koga first due to my plethora of ground types. His team, though, is rather lackluster. It's 3 Venonats and a Venomoth, so honestly I should have drafted in Haunter for this point so I could have spammed Psychic here, considering ground types are neutral due to that bug typing. I lead Gyarados because of this and just spam Surf against the first one, using 2 and tanking Tackle and Psychic. Then using 1 more and taking a Tackle before finally finishing it off with a critical hit leading to the second one. Surf does just about the same thing here, doing half before Gyarados is confused, then put to sleep with Hypnosis, but I'm able to pull through the tackles and eventually KO with just 40 HP remaining, putting it out of commission for his last 2 Pokemon. At this point though, I feel it's safe to bring in Nidoking, though sadly 2 Earthquakes barely misses the range to KO, getting hit with a nasty 2 Psybeams as the third and final Earthquake KOs, leaving just Venomoth. From here, I swap into Primeape, get paralyzed by Stun Spore, but that's fine as Crush Claw connects for a third. So I swap into Nidoqueen, going for Crush Claw again for another third, then attempting Hyper Beam. First turn I'm held down by paralysis, unfortunately, but fine, as the second manages to fire and KO Venomoth, winning me the battle. Good stuff, now for the stressful one. Sabrina's not as bad as she could be, assuming this is the correct yellow team with Abracadabra and Alakazam, but those last two are still pretty threatening if we can't one-shot them with powerful physical moves while outspeeding. She leads Abra, using Teleport as she has nothing else, while Earthquake KOs with a one-shot critical from Nidoking. Then Kadabra wastes time with Calm Mind and Teleport, being two-shot by Earthquake. All that's left is Alakazam though, so once again I go for Earthquake, but she outspeeds and goes for Psychic, so I brace for Death, and survive on 21 HP, hitting for a little below half. That's fine, I could just swap out here into Gyarados, and thankfully, cleanly, as she decides to use Teleport for some reason, and then goes for Psybeam instead of Psychic next turn. Crunch does decent damage, bringing Alakazam low enough to force a Max Potion while lowering her defense, and I guess some of that Chinese text is still here. Huh. Well, she goes once again, wasting time with Calm Mind, allowing for a second and third Crunch to connect for 2/3 damage. I figured despite that Calm Mind though, I'm fine to stay in and go for one more to get that KO, but Alakazam outspeeds, hitting Psychic and critting. But Gyarados survives on just 14 HP to deliver that last Crunch needed to KO and win the Marsh Badge. 6 down, 2 and the league to go. With Surf now being accessible outside of battle, I'm good to take out all those optional trainers on those water routes, grabbing Tentacool on Route 19, Krabby from the Seafoam Islands, Horsey from Route 20, Grimer from the Pokemon Mansion, grabbing the... hold up, why is a wild Moltres here? I mean, I ban legendaries from my runs in games that don't have legendaries used by opposing trainers, but I can't help but throw my Master Ball at that. It's not going to be used, but I'm very, very confused considering this isn't where it should be. Anyway, I grab the secret key during that time, then finally take out the gym trainers and get Shelter on Route 21, grinding up to level 54 in preparation for Blaine. But hold on, there's a static Articuno in the Seafoam Islands, yet Moltres is just a random encounter in the Pokemon Mansion? Well, I don't have another Master Ball, so I'd rather not fight a level 50 legendary bird and potentially lose a member of my team, so I just leave and finish that grind before taking on Blaine. He starts Ninetales, I start Nidoking, and wow, that flamethrower was miserable. 2 Earthquakes does him in, as that and Ember combined do about a third, leading to Rapidash. Not sure if this would have been a one-shot without Double Edge recoil, but it brings Nidoking down to just 37 HP as Earthquake KOs in one attack from there, leaving just Arcanine. Of course, this is what we reserved Gyarados for, since we resist, so we can just toss Surf at it over and over again until it dies, hitting it 3 times in a row, even through a burn to KO and win. Well then, I guess with just the Viridian gym trainers before Giovanni, which admittedly I appreciate some of them being Team Rocket grunts rather than regular trainers, who have no idea what Giovanni's normal plans are up to, though I wish all of them were top-of-the-line grunts instead of these 2 weird Brendan recolor stragglers here. Either way, after a grind to level 60 for Giovanni, but considering for the level cap of the Elite Four it's 62, I do keep a few Pokemon anywhere between level 57 and 59 just in case. He leads Dugtrio, myself with Gyarados, and I'm just going for Surf, nothing else to it. And thankfully, he has nothing as well, wasting time with Defense Curl as 2 Surfs does it in, leading to Nidoqueen. Once again, nothing really happening here as 3 Surfs does the job, taking a useless Charm and Feint Attack for such low damage that it's pathetic, leading to Nidoking third. Surf continues to go brrr as Revenge is resisted, but doing less than Feint Attack and only hitting once as he wastes another turn with Tail Whip, being KO'd in 3 Surfs as Rhydon enters fourth. Now, I could be worried about Rock Slide or something stupid at -2 defense, or I could KO with a stab quad effective move that is Surf. So I go for it, but somehow Rhydon does not go down. I am convinced that the way stats are calculated here, that this is not correct, especially with a 3-level difference. But it really doesn't matter as he goes for Tail Whip, bringing Gyarados to -3 defense as Surf KOs on the second attack. Without his Onix, a one-shot with Surf, leaving just his Ace Persian. Yeah, 6 Pokemon on a gym leader's team. I very much approve of this. However, we have 3 Pokemon with fighting moves, so I just swap to Nidoking and slap it around a few times, using 3 Revenges to KO and win in the fight. Well, that's 8 badges. The game's holding up pretty well in terms of difficulty and functionality on the surface level, so let's see if that keeps up going into the last rival fight and the league. Actually, so much for that last rival fight. There is no 6th rival fight on Route 22, but there is another Jesse and James fight right after Giovanni leaves his gym, so once again they're swept by the power of Nidoking. Level 60 Meowth, by the way. Seriously, just let this thing evolve! Anyway, the last few encounters I end up getting are Onyx from the Victory Road, which also results in disaster, as during my time in Victory Road, an errant critical karate chop from a Parasect? Sure, I guess it makes enough sense, but it crits Raticate, KOing it and forcing me down to 5 party members. Well, shoot, if I'm gonna have to grind something up, I may as well grind 2 things up. Once all the trainers are defeated in Victory Road, I head up into the Pokemon League, deposit both the dead Raticate and Nidoqueen so I can add in Charmander and Haunter to the team. Admittedly, I still have 2 poison types, but I think Ghost and Ground are both substantially different enough for me to be fine with the overlap. But one arduous grind that takes several hours later, thanks to Charmander and Haunter being very low level, I finally get everybody edged up, teetering on the level cap of 62 as the cap is lifted once we enter the league, ready for battle. Alright, first up is Lorelei, starting Dugong as I go with Raichu, nearly one-shotting it with Thunder as Rock Smash lands for minimal damage, KOing with Thunderbolt next turn as Cloyster comes out and immediately falls to Thunder because of its paper-thin special defense. Third is Slowbro, and despite it being a massive special tank, it nearly goes down to a single Thunder, leading to me going for Thunderbolt next turn to conserve power points and so I don't miss, leading to Jinx fourth. I figured there's no reason to use Raichu here and take damage before Lapras comes out, so I simply swap for Charizard, only to get confused by an errant Supersonic. I guess we didn't have Sweet Kiss on the docket here. Oh well, it doesn't matter as Fire Blast totally rips through Jinx in one shot, leading to Lapras. The strongest move it has is Water Gun, apparently, so I bring Raichu just back in, thunder it for around 70%, then take one more Water Gun to bring Raichu just below half before Thunderbolt cleans up the last KO of the fight. Good stuff, and thankfully, because of all of that grinding, I've got a good collection of Ethers and Elixirs, so that my power points are all good to go going into every fight. Next up is Bruno, and he starts Onyx as I go with Gengar, blasting it with Shadow Ball and Psybeam to KO as he goes for Tackle. What a goober! What an absolute rube, just a moron. This is why we don't talk about Bruno. Psychic KOs both Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee, leading to Onyx number 2, who at least has Crunch. It does only about a third before going down to 2 Shadow Balls, but at least has Crunch. At least just Machamp, and it could be a little rough since Psychic doesn't one-shot, but he wastes time with Sand Attack, and I don't really care, hitting it with a second Psychic to KO and win me the fight. Third up is Agatha, and there's no need to take a break other than for healing Gengar, as it's still the perfect lead here, using Shadow Ball for the Ghost types and Psychic for the Poison types like Golbat and Arbok. Shadow Ball one-shots the first Gengar, Psychic KOs the Golbat... Hold up. Pause right now. There is no health bar there, and it's still alive. I thought fighting games were the only games to have this nonsense. Not that it matters though, as Supersonic misses, letting Gengar KO on the follow-up as Haunter comes out third, going down immediately to Shadow Ball as well. Fourth is Arbok, which Psychic one-shots, and last out is Gengar, so Shadow Ball one-shots, winning me the fight in short order. Can't complain with that. 2 more fights to go and no losses on the team yet. Let's see if we can get through this league deathless just for fun. Lance kicks off with Gyarados, so I do the same since I've got Thunderbolt on mine, 2-shotting as he barely does any damage with Dragon Pulse, leading to Hold up, wait, again? Isn't Dragon Pulse a Gen 4 move? Well, turns out it's actually mistranslated. Instead, it's actually Outrage, speaking from experience on using it with Charizard during grinding. Tangent aside though, Dragonair is a bit harder to deal with, though Crunch is at least an option. An option that does next to nothing! I don't know why I decided to do that voice. It only does slightly over half with 3 of them, as he continues to spam Tackle and Pound. I just want to ask why? At least the 5th and final Crunch is a critical hit though, KOing and leading to Dragonair number 2. And since I don't want to have to go through that again, I just swap for Charizard and nail it in the face with a Dragon Pulse to KO in one shot. 3 down, 2 to go as Aerodactyl is out 4th, and there's no way I'm staying in against a Rock type. So I swap in a Raichu, resisting Steel Wing. Why would you opt to use Steel Wing against a Fire type? Well, either way, I can just fire off Thunder, but not before barely hanging on from Hyper Beam, finishing it off during the recharge turn with Thunderbolt to KO, and leave just Dragonite. From here, I can just start tossing Pokemon at it to damage it to death, so I swap to Nidoking, spam Sludge Bomb as he tosses out Dragon Claws ad nauseum, eventually outpacing Nidoking's damage. It's down a significant amount though, so who cares? Out to Primeape as we blast it with the Strength, KOing and winning the fight, learning Dynamic Punch in the process. Well, if it's anything like my deceased Raticate's Focus Punch, maybe it'll be useful enough. Also, I guess I figured I'd point this out with the penultimate fight just wrapping up, but every single enemy trainer has the same win quote. It's legitimately just the same one every time. I can't believe I lost! What is this, Street Fighter 1 with
What strength? But don't forget there are many guys like you all over the world.
All that remains is Gary, though, so I'm leading Raichu, expecting Cloyster first. Whoopsie, I guess I should have started with Gyarados. Not a problem, as I can just swap into the ground immunity, but it seems as though he predicted my attempt here and goes for Rock Tomb. Thankfully missing. From here, he's dumb though, goes for Poison Sting and not poisoning, then Charm to lower my unneeded attack and defense, I guess, as 2 Surfs do him in, leading to Alakazam. Crunch should do the job perfectly well here as well, dodging Supersonic as it does about a third, then getting nailed with a Psychic to do around a third to Gyarados as a second Crunch does another third to Alakazam, leaving me to survive on just 30 HP after a second Psychic as a third Crunch does him in, leading to Executor. Just a quick swap into Charizard here, and Fire Blast should be able to take this guy down straight away. He barely does any damage with a critical Seed Bomb on that swap as well, though Charizard barely misses the one-shot with Fire Blast as Hypnosis connects to put Charizard to sleep. Well, that's a little bit rough, especially when he's going for a Max Potion next turn to undo the damage from Fire Blast. Charizard's still asleep though next turn as he goes for Confusion, getting a critical and doing way more damage than he has any right to. What is with this damage calculation? Yes, I'm swapping again, this time into Nidoking despite Confusion to absorb a Seed Bomb and fire back with Sludge Bomb for well over half, taking a Feint Attack next turn to complete the 2-shot KO, leaving half of his team remaining. Out comes Cloyster fourth, so out to Raichu I go to take care of it in 1 Thunder after wasting its only turn with Withdraw. Fifth out is Ninetales, and since Gyarados doesn't have enough HP to take care of it, I figured I'd just stay in and attack with stab moves, Thunder and 2 Thunderbolts being plenty enough to KO through a few Flamethrowers, surviving on just over half as Jolteon is all that remains. I tried staying in to just absorb any electric-type attacks, but after hitting Thunder for such low damage, and seeing a Tail Whip, I figured I'd just swap into Primeape to finish this. He goes for Agility on the swap, then outspeeds and misses with Thunder as Cross Chop brings him down to low HP, forcing another Max Potion. This should be pretty much over at this point, as Brick Break does around half damage on the healing turn, though I don't trust any range whatsoever, not after all I've been through, so I choose Cross Chop and hope and pray to survive a Thunder. Only to see Tackle. I guess that's fitting. The Pokemon game's AI is just as competent as Game Freak's normal Gen 1. What can you say? It's a faithful port. It allows Primeape to finish the fight, winning me the challenge and entering me into the Hall of Fame. Which doesn't actually show anything and instead throws me right back into Pallet Town. That's a little anticlimactic to say the least, but I won, so who cares? Overall, though, I've got to give credit to Shenzhen Nanjing for making a really decent recreation of the Pokemon formula for those who couldn't access actual Pokemon games at the time, especially with the improvements and difficulty changes added here. I enjoyed it for what it was, and if you did too, they also ported Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire to the NES, so if you want that video as well, feel free to leave a like and comment down below letting me know you want a video on it. With all that being said though, I just want to give one more shout out to today's sponsor, Dungeon Hunter 6. Definitely go check them out since it helps out the channel a ton, and if you want to keep up with my content, feel free to subscribe, as well as go follow me over on Twitter and join my Discord server. Links are in the description. But with that, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.